Not long ago, someone asked me how I was doing, and I said, "I'm fine," before the question was even all the way finished. It was automatic, a reflex. The words were out of my mouth before I'd checked whether they were true. And they weren't, particularly. It had been a hard week. There was something sitting on me that I hadn't put down. But the person asked, and I heard myself say, "I'm fine, thanks, you." Smooth, easy, practiced, and we both moved on. What stopped me was that I noticed it this time. Usually I don't. Usually "I'm fine" does its job so quietly that I never hear it happen. But that day, for whatever reason, I caught myself in the act. And I stood there afterward thinking, what did I just do? Because I hadn't lied exactly. I wasn't trying to deceive anyone. It was more like I'd reached for a small, smooth stone I keep in my pocket for exactly these moments and handed it over and kept walking. Something automatic, something I'd done 10,000 times. And I got curious about it, about what that reflex actually is, about what I'm really doing in the half second when someone asks how I am and I say, "I'm fine," without even consulting myself first. Maybe you know this one. Maybe you say it too. The quick, "I'm fine," the easy, "I'm good" you. Sometimes when it's true, and sometimes when it's the furthest thing from it. Most of us do. It might be the most common sentence in the language. But I don't think it's as simple as it looks. And tonight, I want to take it apart a little, gently. Because I think what we're doing when we say, "I'm fine," is more interesting and more human than just hiding. Stay with me. Let me start with the reflex itself. Because the first thing I noticed is that it's fast. "I'm fine" doesn't come from the same place a real answer comes from. A real answer takes a second. You have to actually check, how am I really? And that pause is a small act of looking inward. "I'm fine" skips the pause entirely. It's already loaded. Someone asks, and it fires before you've looked at anything, and I think that speed tells you something. We don't build automatic reflexes for things that don't matter. We build them for things we've decided we can't afford to fumble. The reflex is fast because somewhere along the way, we learned that the honest answer was risky or costly or simply more than the moment could hold. And so we built a shortcut that would keep us safe without our having to think about it. Most of the time, that's not a bad thing. Someone passes you in a hallway and asks how you are. They don't want the real answer. You don't want to give it. "I'm fine" is the social equivalent of a handshake. It keeps things moving. It's polite. It's kind in its own small way. Not every question is an invitation, and "I'm fine" knows the difference. So I want to be clear from the start. The reflex isn't the problem. The reflex is often exactly right, but it's worth asking what it's protecting, because it's always protecting something. Here's the first thing "I'm fine" protects, and it's the obvious one. It protects you. When you say "I'm fine," you don't have to open the thing that's actually going on. You don't have to find the words for it, or feel it out loud, or watch someone's face change while you do. You get to keep the hard thing inside, where you have some control over it, instead of setting it out on the table where anything could happen to it. And for people who like to carry their own weight, who were maybe raised to or learned to somewhere along the line, that control matters. There's a kind of person who would genuinely rather handle a hard thing alone than hand a piece of it to someone else. Not because they're cold, because managing it themselves feels cleaner and safer and more like who they are. If that's you, you know the feeling. The relief of "I'm fine" isn't the relief of fooling someone. It's the relief of keeping the door closed on something you're not ready to show. Of staying for one more conversation, the person who has it handled. I've lived a lot of my life as that person, the one who has it handled. And "I'm fine" is the sentence that keeps that version of me intact. But there's a second thing it protects, and this is the one I find more interesting. Because it's not about you at all. A lot of the time when we say "I'm fine," we're protecting the other person. Think about it honestly. When someone you care about asks how you are, and you're not okay, part of what stops you from saying so is them. You don't want to hand them something heavy they can't do anything about. You don't want to change the temperature of the room. You don't want to be the reason their easy afternoon gets complicated. So you say, "I'm fine," and you spare them. You keep the moment light for their sake. You carry your thing quietly so that they don't have to feel the weight of it or worry or scramble to fix something that isn't theirs to fix. And I want to say this plainly because I think it gets missed. That is often an act of love. It really is. Choosing to carry your own weight so the people around you don't have to is not a character flaw. It's a kind of strength and a kind of care. Some of the most generous people I've known are people who almost never say when they're struggling, precisely because they're so attuned to not wanting to be a burden. So when we talk about "I'm fine," I don't want to pretend it's just avoidance. Half the time, it's competence, it's kindness. It's a grown person deciding to handle their own life so that the people they love can rest. But here's where it gets quiet. Because there's a cost to being that person, and it's a cost almost nobody sees. The cost is this. If you always say, "I'm fine," then eventually no one knows when you're not. That's the trap in it. The reflex works so well and you run it so smoothly that the people around you come to believe it. Why wouldn't they? You've told them 1,000 times in a completely convincing voice that you're fine. So they take you at your word. They stop looking closer. And why would they look? You've never given them a reason to. And so you can end up in a strange kind of solitude, surrounded by people who care about you, people who would show up in a heartbeat if they knew, and not one of them knowing, because you've become so good at the smooth answer that you've made your struggle invisible to the exact people who'd want to help carry it. That's the loneliness of the person who always says, "I'm fine." It's not the loneliness of having no one. It's the loneliness of being unknown in a room full of people who love you, because the version of you they know is the one who never needs anything. I've been there. I've sat in my own life, genuinely struggling, and looked around at people who cared about me and understood that not one of them had any idea. And I couldn't even be angry about it, because I was the one who'd built it that way. Every "I'm fine," a small brick laid so smoothly that I never noticed I was building a wall. That's the difference I've come to watch for. Between the "I'm fine" that keeps a hallway moving, which is healthy and kind and completely fine, and the "I'm fine" that's become a locked door, even with the people who've earned a key. So how do you tell them apart? From the inside. I don't have a clean test. But I've found one question that tends to cut through it, and it's not, "Am I telling the truth?" It's gentler than that. It's this: is there anyone I'd let past it Because a healthy "I'm fine" is one you could set down if the right person asked, in the right moment. You keep it up with the hallway, with the stranger, with the acquaintance, and that's exactly as it should be. But somewhere in your life, there's ideally a person or two with whom the "I'm fine" is optional. Someone you could actually answer honestly if you decided to. The question worth sitting with is whether that person exists for you, and if they do, whether you ever actually let them in, or whether you say, "I'm fine" to them too, out of pure habit, even though they've long since earned the truer answer. Because that's the quiet tragedy I've watched in some people and lived myself. It's not that they have no one who'd listen. It's that they've said "I'm fine" so many times to everyone for so long that they've forgotten it's allowed to be optional with anyone. So here's where I've landed after a lot of years of saying it. For most of my life, I thought "I'm fine" was just good manners, a social courtesy, the thing you say to keep the world running smoothly. I think it's more than that now. I think it's often care, a way of sparing the people around me. I think it's often competence, a way of carrying my own weight like an adult. And I don't want to unlearn it, because most of the time, it's exactly right. The world does not need my honest answer in every hallway. "I'm fine" is a gift I give people, and myself, dozens of times a week, and I'd keep giving it. But I've also learned this. There are one or two people in my life who've earned more than the stone in my pocket. People who wouldn't be burdened by the truth, who would in fact feel closer to me for hearing it. And for years I said "I'm fine" to them too, on pure reflex, and quietly cheated us both out of something. So I've been trying, slowly, to notice when I'm handing the smooth answer to someone who deserves the real one. Not to everyone, not in every hallway, just with the few who've earned it, just often enough that I don't disappear behind my own good manners. You don't have to stop saying "I'm fine." It's a good sentence. It does honest work. You might just ask yourself if there's one person you've been saying it to who was always strong enough to hear the rest. I'll leave you with this. "I'm fine" is one of the kindest lies we tell, and most of the time it isn't even a lie. It's how we carry ourselves. It's how we spare each other. It's how grown people hold their own weight so the world can stay light. But make sure it isn't the only thing you ever say. Keep it for the hallways. And with the 2 or 3 people who could hold the real answer, every now and then, when it matters, let them. Because the point was never to be the person who's always fine. The point was to be known by someone. And no one can hold what you never let them see. Tell me in the comments, are you someone who says "I'm fine" when you're not? I'd like to know. Because I think there are a lot of us out here, carrying our weight quietly, wondering if anyone would notice if we set it down. I'm Daniel. I'll see you in the late hours.